We've tried to make the content area of your bio section really customizable. For that reason, we've offered a total of 5 columns that you can use to insert widgets that create your bio content. It's called a bio area, and certainly it is a great place to include information about yourself. However, it's also a really great area for highlighting just about anything you can think of. You can see a few labeled examples in this tutorial below the video, and you can preview all sorts of bio area setups in our design store. The possibilities are just about endless when you start combining all sorts of different widgets in these 5 columns. All you have to do is understand a few basic things about how the bio area widget columns work, and you should be able to create nearly whatever arrangement of content you can think of. The 5 available bio widget columns are called Bio Area Spanning Column and Bio Area Columns 1 through 4. Theoretically, they're laid out as shown in this diagram. Here, you can see the bio area spanning column spans across the top of all the other columns, and the other 4 are lined up from left to right underneath it. I say theoretically because if you don't place any widgets in any one of these columns, that column will not be inserted at all. It will effectively disappear, and the other columns will expand to fill its place. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here I've added a simple text widget to all 5 columns of the bio area. When I view my blog, you can see the same arrangement of columns I showed you in the diagram. It's silly looking, but it shows you how all the columns appear when there's at least one widget in each of them. But let's say I decide that 4 columns of text are a little excessive, so I remove the 1 widget from column number 2. When I refresh my blog, you can see that column 2 is gone, and the other 3 non-spanning columns have expanded to take up the space that it was using. You can see the same effect if I remove the widget from the spanning column. I then refresh the page, and the spanning column area is gone, and the other columns have moved up, filling the space it left behind. This auto expansion property becomes very important when you're wanting to display one or more grids in your bio area. Since the size of grid thumbnails is determined by the space available and the number of columns you've chosen, the wider your bio area column, the wider the grid thumbnails inside that column can be. So let's remove our text widgets and experiment with some ProPhoto grid widgets. In the bio spanning column, I'll put a 4-column, 1-row recent post grid. In bio column 1, I'll put a 1-column grid with just 1 gallery in it. In bio column 2, I'll put a 2-column grid with 2 selected posts in it. And in bio column 3, I'll put a 3-column grid with 3 selected pages in it. Notice the differently sized grid images and how the spanning column gives you the widest area for a grid. ProPhoto automatically sizes the grid thumbnails to best fit the column width. Since each column has the same width, changing the number of grid items in the grid changes the size of the corresponding thumbnails. Now, what do you think will happen if I remove a grid widget from one of the numbered columns? You guessed it. The other grid thumbnails in the other columns will get bigger. Removing Bio column 1, or the widget in that column, allows for columns 2 and 3 to expand, which in turn allows for larger grid images. Sometimes, when placing content in the various bio columns, the content in one column takes up a lot more space than content in other columns. In this example, the amount of text in column 1 is disproportionate to the area occupied by the text widgets in column 2 and 3. No problem. Remember, you can put as many widgets in a column as you like, in whatever order you want. So I think I'll stack all my smaller text widgets in one column. Now only 2 columns are shown, and I have 2 widgets in one of them and 1 in the other. As you've been watching these demonstrations, you've probably noticed that when I remove or add a column, the columns are always changing widths so that they're all the same width. There is, however, an exception to that behavior. To explain that exception, I first need to remind you that in your Widgets admin page, there are 2 types of widgets you can insert. The default WordPress widgets and the ones added by ProPhoto. Well, a few of the ProPhoto widgets have fixed dimensions. For example, this social media icon widget I'm inserting has a width of exactly 256 pixels. If I was using just 2 of the numbered bio columns, one with a text widget and the other with this icon widget, it wouldn't make sense to have those 2 columns be equal in width. The column with just the icon widget would have tons of extra space. For that very reason, ProPhoto tries to be smart about this kind of situation and actually lays out the columns like this, which looks a lot better. So you see that ProPhoto tries to intelligently accommodate widget content with differing widths when it can. Remember though, that it only knows about the widths of certain of its own custom ProPhoto widgets. So using default WordPress widgets won't cause this intelligent resizing to happen. Also, if you put an icon with a fixed dimension in a column, but then also add another widget like a text widget into that same column, ProPhoto will once again try to make the columns even, which is the most visually pleasing in most scenarios. Also, it's important to know that if you're including a bio picture from the Customize page, that the bio picture, whether it's on the right or the left, it acts like a super column, as shown in this diagram. What that means is that you can't wrap text around the bio picture or display other widgets underneath it. So that's how the bio area is designed. As you've seen, it attempts to give you as much flexibility as it can and tries to make good choices about how all the columns should be laid out to look their best. However, sometimes things can still end up looking a little funny. But don't worry, usually experimenting with widget and column arrangement can get it looking great. One common problem people have is if they try to cram too many columns with fixed width widgets into their bio area. At a certain point, there's just not enough room, and the columns lop over onto the next line. To fix this, try rearranging your widgets or decreasing their size. Or if you're using fixed width images, you might find that the ProPhoto grid widgets, which automatically resize the thumbnail images, would be a better fit.